Good evening. So we're holding the middle of the overview of Tanya, and today we're going to continue from Perek Lamed Ches. We're going to do today Perek Lamed Ches, Lamed Tes, and Mem in the overview. Last week, in the overview of the three prakim beforehand, Lamed Hey, Lamed Vav, Lamed Zayin, so we spoke about why Maisa HaMitzvahs is so important. And why Maisa is so important. And now we are going to kind of talk about the other side of the coin, which is why Kavana is so important. Kavana, as it talked about in Tanya, when it talks about Kavana, Kavana means Ahava V'yira. Most of us, when we think of Kavana, we think of intention. As in, like, I'm doing a mitzvah, so am I doing it like a mindless robot, or am I mindful of what I am doing? That's kavana. When Dr. Rabbi talks about kavana, it's related to the word in Hebrew in Lashon HaKodesh, the mekuvan. The mekuvan. In other words, what is the goal? What is your intention in doing the mitzvah? Not do you have mindfulness, but your intention in doing the mitzvah. And what is the intention? The intention when a yid does a mitzvah, why am I doing it? Because I love Hashem and because I fear Hashem. So kavana is ahava v'yira. So in the last three prakim, we spoke about the advantage of Maisa mitzvahs. And it would seem that Kavana, Ava, and Yira is not so important. Hashem wants Adira b'tachtoinim. Adira b'tachtoinim is accomplished, as we explained, dafka through action and dafka through utilizing the faculties of the Nefesh HaBahamis. So why would Kavana or Ava Yira be so important? So that's what we're going to learn about in these three prakim. There's an interesting connection to the parsha. Reb Shimshon of Ashrapala writes something interesting. He says that Bilam has a special relationship, is connected to Amalek. How do we know that? Because if you write the word Bilam on one line, and then the next line underneath it you write Amalek. Try to envision that in your head. We don't have a whiteboard over here. You write Bilam and you write Amalek. Then you take the first two letters of Bilam and the first two letters of Amalek. What does that make up? The first two letters of Bilam and the first two letters of Amalek makes up Bilam. Take the last two letters of Bilam and the last two letters of Amalek. What does that make? The last two letters of Bilam and the last two letters of Amalek makes up Amalek. So if you put the words one on top of another, you could read Bilam Amalek, top to bottom, or you could, in other words, right to left, or you could read top to bottom, Bilam Amalek.
You see a Google of Laban? You see the reincarnation of Laban?
Who? Bilam? We'll get to that in a moment.
Okay.
What's the antidote to the Bilam Amalek, the enemies of Klal Yisrael? Is Ava and Yira. Do that again. Put Ava on the top line, and actually put Yira on the top line and Ava on the bottom line. Yira and Ava. So the first two letters of Yira and the first two letters of Ava spell Yira, and the last two letters of Yira and the last two letters of Ava spell Ava. So again, Yira and Ava. If you put Yira on top of Ava, you can read them either way. You can read it side to side or top to bottom. What's the connection? That when we have Yira and Ava, we're able to combat Bilam and Amalek. So the Rebbe, in a Sikha, the Rebbe explains something interesting with the connection between Bilam and Amalek. Yira and Ava. If you write that on a paper, do Bilam Amalek and Yira and Ava, you'll see what I'm saying. Yes?
Rabbi, how would you define the word Yira?
Yira means that you're doing something not because you have this incredible desire to do it, which is Ava, but because you're overwhelmed by the other. You have a feeling of awe, reverence, or fear. All of those come from that I'm overwhelmed by the presence of another. Amalek had very good yichus. Who was Amalek? Amalek was a great grandchild Amalek was a grandchild of Esav, a great-grandchild of Yitzchak, and a great-great-grandchild of Avraham Avinu.
Good yichus.
Good yichus. Hard to find better yichus than having a great-grandfather as Yitzchak, your great-great-grandfather as Avraham Avinu. You know, today in our circles, you could have found a very good shidduch. You don't get better than that. This is the most Rebbesh family that you can find. Lavan didn't have yichus, but Lavan had the opposite. Lavan is the ancestor of all of Klal Yisrael. When he confronted Yaakov Avinu, he says, Habanim Banai, Habanais Benaisai, all the 12 Shvatim that you have, they're all my children, they're all my ancestors, they're all my descendants. So these are both very, very chashuv people. These aren't people who are coming from the outside. What it works. Confirmed. Okay. These aren't people who are coming from the outside. These are people who are insiders. Amalek is an insider, and Lavan's an insider, and this represents the biggest threat to Klal Yisrael. The biggest threat from Klal Yisrael doesn't come from the outside. The biggest threat to Klal Yisrael always comes from the inside, from the people with the yichus, from the people who, and they know better and they understand better, and they say, I know the way you're supposed to do, learn Torah, understand Torah, and do mitzvahs. Those are the biggest threat. How do you combat those people? And the answer is with Yira and Ava. That Yira and Ava means when you're dedicated to Hashem, then you don't look at the birth certificate, and you don't look at the ancestry, and you don't look at anything. You know one thing: is this correct according to Torah? Is this what Hashem wants or not? So when you have Yira and Ava, when you're properly grounded in your bittul to Hashem and your connection to Hashem, then you're able to fight off even the worst enemies, which are the enemies that come from within. So Stam, we're talking here in this, today, we're going to talk about Yira and Ava. There's an interesting connection to this week's Parsha, how Yira and Ava is the antidote to Bilam and Amalek. Oh, so, I said Lavan. Okay, I missed out on that one detail, that one link. Bilam was a grandchild of Lavan. There are actually madrashim that say that he was Lavan, but according to the Gemara in Sanhedrin says that Bilam was a grandchild of Lavan. So that's the connection of Bilam to Lavan. Yeah. So based on what we said last week, the Alter Rebbe says now we understand very well the halacha, which is that if you eat Krishma in your mind, and yet all the kavana in the world, and all the avas Hashem, and all the yiras Hashem, and you had literally your mind and heart were exploding with kavana and with emotions, and nevertheless the mitzvah you did not accomplish. Why? Because hirhur lav kedibur dami, because thought does not equate to speech, which is very surprising. The same thing is with davening. You have to daven with your lips. Why is that, you would think? What is davening? What is Shema? It's avodah shebelev. It's all about the heart. It's all about my feelings. It's all about connecting to Hashem in my heart. When I say Shema Yisrael Hashem Elokeinu Hashem Echad, the point is that my mind should be focused on the Achdus Hashem. And when I say V'yahaftas Hashem Elokecha b'chal levavcha b'chal nafshecha, the point is that my heart should experience the Ava b'chal levavcha b'chal nafshecha. So imagine you have two people. One of them does Teshman Esrei and barely has any kavana, maybe even no kavana. And another person is serving Hashem with the heart. One person says Shema, has everything in the heart and the mind, the other person doesn't. Who's Yotza, who's not Yotza? Okay, so the first pasuk of Shema, there's a halacha that taka you have to have kavanah to be Yotza. But the bottom line is, the main thing is, the saying the words. Why is that? So without the idea of dir b'tachtoinim, without that underlying principle, taka doesn't make any sense. But once we understand that every single mitzvah, the purpose of every mitzvah is to bring godliness b'tachtoinim, to bring Hashem down into the lowest domain possible, which is the nefesh hachayunis, the nefesh abahamis, is explained last week. And if you're just feeling things in your heart, that's not your nefesh abahamis. That's your nefesh alikis. In order for the nefesh abahamis to be able to experience the mitzvah, you have to move your lips, you have to articulate the words. So the main thing is the maisa. Does that mean kavana is nothing? Absolutely not. Chazal tell us that a tefillah or a bracha without kavana is like a guf without a neshama. So how do we understand this? How do we reconcile these two sides of it? So the Rebbe explains as follows. In terms of the Chayis Aliki, the divine energy that comes from Hashem. So there are two different things that happen to that light as it descends through the worlds, unrelated to each other. One is that the light becomes diminished. It becomes less and less, the light contracts. Imagine you have the sun, and then you have a dark room, and there's a little hole in the wall. So the light comes into the room. The light, however, that's in the room is greatly diminished. Imagine there's a room next to it, and you make a hole from this room into the next room. So the light that goes into the next room, that tiny, tiny little sliver of light, which is just enough to allow you not to bump your nose in the wall when you're walking around, the light is being further diminished. There's the diminishment of the light. So as the light comes down to the world, the light becomes diminished. And then, besides for the light being diminished, the light becomes hidden, which is something else entirely. The light becomes more hidden. And they're not necessarily related to one another. You can have sometimes the light which is not diminished but hidden. You can have a light which is diminished but not hidden. And Dr. Rabbi gives an example to bring out this point. Here in this world, in general, we have four different classes of creation, what we call the four kingdoms. There's Doivim, Tzemeach, Chayim, Medaber. The inanimate, and then there is that which grows, and there's the animal kingdom, and then there's human beings. It is understood that the amount of chayis of Hashem that's within each one is different. In Doimim, there's only a drop. There's only a drop of chayis. In other words, the light has been extremely diminished and contracted by the time it comes into the stone, as opposed to in Semeach, in a plant. So over there, the light has not been as diminished, which is why it has more energy and therefore it has life and it grows. In an animal, the light is even greater light, less diminished, which is why the animal also has the function, it has mobility, is able to feel, it has a limited intellect, etc. And then there's a human being, and in the human being there's even greater amount of divine light, and that is why human beings are so much greater than animals. And we have free choice, and intellect, real intellect, abstract intellect, etc. So in this world, we have many different gradations of Hashem's light here in this world. That's in terms of how much the light has been reduced. In terms of the hiddenness, however, Hashem is equally hidden in everything in this world. It's not as if you look at a human being and a human being expresses more godliness than an animal. An animal doesn't express more godliness than a tree, and a tree not more than a rock. Meaning, you look at a rock and you look at a monkey. Do you say by one of them, do you see more Hashem than the other? Hashem is equal in this world. We don't see Hashem anywhere. The Hester is absolute. Hester, the hiddenness. Again, we're not talking about the diminishment of light. There are different levels and how much light and energy there is. But the one thing which is the common denominator in everything in this world, that's why this is the lowest world that there is. Olam Hazeh Agashmi is the Tachton, Shein Tachton, Lamata Imena. It's the lowest world. Why? Because the Hester, the concealment, is absolute in this world. There's nowhere in this world that you look and you say, Hashem is obvious and overt and something which strikes you. Hashem is hidden in everything.
Pasuk in Eov that says, sorry, forget the actual Russian, but it says, in my flesh I see God.
That's a choice. That's not something which is obvious. That's a choice. I have the ability, if I want, to look at myself and contemplate myself, and thereby to be able to extrapolate that there is Hashem or to understand things about Hashem. But we know,
but you don't see
but
it.
That's a choice. It's not something which you see, which is natural.
You perceive it as
right, but it's not natural. Proof being that there are many, many people who look at themselves and look at others, and they don't see Hashem. So it's not something which is revealed. You can make a choice to understand it and perceive it, but it's not something which is openly revealed.
Talks about
You can quote me 100 Sfarim. What I'm telling you is logic. I'm not telling you something that says, if we talk, I can argue this safer, the other safer, but I'm telling you, what I'm saying is the truth. And everyone knows this. Everyone knows that there are people who walk around this world for 70, 80, 90 years, and not once do they perceive Hashem. How is that possible? It's because the Hester is absolute. If there was a hole in the Hester, if there was a hole in the hiddenness and the concealment, then everyone wouldn't have a choice but to acknowledge it. And Hashem deliberately designed the world in a way there's a concealment. And that's something which is, as they say, nira b'chush. So I'm sure this farm, everything it says in this farm is correct, but we have to understand what it means while appreciating the reality of the situation. The Rabbi says, in Torah and mitzvahs, we have a reverse situation. Similar in one way, but reversed in another way. Similar in one way, which is that depending on how you do the mitzvah, what your intention, what your kavanah is, there will be a different amount of light present in that mitzvah. And as we will see, if you do with mitzvah with kavanah, the light is much stronger, the light of Hashem. If you do a mitzvah without kavanah, the light is very much reduced. In that way, it's similar to this world. Just like in the world there's gradations of light, in Torah and mitzvahs also there's gradations of light. However, in Torah and mitzvahs, it's the exact opposite. Because in Torah and mitzvahs, there is never Hester. Whether there's more light or whether there's less light, Hester there isn't in Torah.
So how you see godliness?
Hold on 1 second.
Oh,
We're going there. So again, in this world, there are differences in light and the amount of light there is in every single thing, but the equalizer is that there is a Hester in everything. In Torah mitzvahs also, there are different levels of light depending on how you do the mitzvah, but the equalizer, the common denominator is, regardless of how you do the Torah mitzvahs, there is no Hester. There is no Hester upon him, ever, in Torah and in mitzvahs. Unless you decide to drag it down into Klippa by doing a mitzvah mamish, by learning Torah, for example, for a bad reason. But I'm saying is, unless you do an act, which is a terrible act with Torah mitzvahs, there is no Hester. In simple words, what this means is, Reuven, is that everything in this world proclaims, what is Klippa? What is this Hester? When we say there's a Hester, that's Klippa, because Klippa means a shell. Klippa is what covers. What is the truth that Klippa is covering?
What do you mean with that?
What, in other words, we're saying Klippa means that it's a shell. It covers the truth. What is the truth? Getlachkeit. So, for example, anything that says I am, that's a lie. It means that's the covering of the truth, and that's Klippa. There's no such thing as I am. The real truth is that Einoid Mulvati. There's nothing but Hashem. There's Hashem, and there's His plan, and there's the part that you play in His plan. But the emes is that Einoid Mulvati. There's nothing but Hashem. So anything that proclaims I am something important, I am, that's Klippa, that's the lie that's covering up the truth. So for example, obviously we talk about the human being, the Nefesh Bahamas is Klippa. Why? Because we walk around and we say, I am. There's the famous story that's made into a song by Yam Teverlach about this Talmud of the Magid, the Mizitcher Magid. He had a Talmud that once he learned for a while by the Magid, and he was going home to his city, and on the way he passed in the city of Rabbi Aaron of Kalin, the Heilike Rabbi Aaron of Kalin, known as Rabbi Aaron HaGadol, tremendous tzaddik, the progenitor of all the Stoliner Chassidim today, all from Rabbi Aaron of Kalin. So he stops off, it's the middle of the night, but he goes straight to Rabbi Aaron's house because he knows that in Rabbi Aaron's house, he's not sleeping yet at this hour of the light, and sure enough, he looks in the window and sees that he's sitting there learning. So he knocks on the window and knocks on the door, and Rabbi Aaron picks up his head from the sefer and says, "Where's Darton? Who's there?" And the person says, "Ich." I guess he assumed that He assumed that
He's gonna know.
that he recognized his voice. Rabbi puts his head back down in the safe and continues learning. The guy knocks again, and once again, wer bist du? Who is it? Ich. And this happens a bunch of times. The guy, it's freezing outside, you know the way it is starting in Russia or wherever it was, Ukraine. And after many times, once again, he knocked, wer bist du? He says, ich, and he said his name. He said, oh, you, why did you come inside? He says, why didn't you let me in? He said, ich. Du bist da ich, you're a something, you're me. Ich, I am. So apparently, you're not ready yet to go home. You have to go back to the Maggid. You still have a lot what to learn. If you can call yourself an ich, yeah. The pasuk says, "Hayisasar ish b'mistarim, v'ani lo yarena." Right? Can a person hide in a hiding place, and I won't see him? So there's a chiddush of art. Hayisasar ish b'mistarim. When a person hides, but he's va'ani, or za'ich, then Hashem says lo yarenu. But hayisasar ish b'mistarim va'ani loi. If a person hides and is not, then arenu. Then Hashem says, then I see him. The whole thing about ich, the whole ich. So it's not only a person, this cup of water, what is it? What does it proclaim? What does it proclaim itself to be? So it doesn't speak, I understand. But conceptually speaking, it says, I'm a cup of water, I'm something. It does not tell you the truth. You don't look at it and see the truth. What is the truth or what is it? It's there only, it's Einad Mavada, it has a function, it's part of the Kavana al Yena, that someone should come along and drink it, and that therefore the person should be able to take the mitzvahs. But you don't see that. The reason why it was created is not apparent in it. It's divine Kavana, which is its whole mitzias. The whole mitzias of this cup and this water is to help a Yid learn Torah. But you look at this cup, you don't see it. It's covered up instead by a ich. It's covered up by a me. That's the klipa, that's the hester, that's in every single thing in the world. Which is, it is one thing, but it proclaims itself to be something else. It is part of Hashem's plan. It's not outside of Hashem's plan. That's what it means, Enid Movadi. There's nothing in the world that's not part of Hashem. And what this whole thing is, an extension of Hashem and part of His Kavanah. So in this world, everything is a hester. You look around at everything in the world, nothing proclaims its own truth. Everything is covered by a klipa. Yes?
And he said his name to the Elko Kalina, would have said, you make yourself a mitzias that you have some kind of a thing that
I hear what you're saying, but at the end of the day, the word ich, me, I, is like a... yeah, I hear what you're saying, but there's a certain...
He would have said his name, that wouldn't be a kosher.
Sorry?
He said, who's there, he asked.
Yeah.
He would have said his name.
The name is how you identify the person, but ich...
Ich means a little bit.
Yeah.
mitzias.
Yeah, I.
It's like a guy or something.
In Chassidus, it's not about when we say in Chassidus, we don't talk so much about gaiva as much as yeshus. You ever heard the word yeshus? Gaiva means arrogance. Arrogance is disgusting. When you bump into a bal gaiva, that's repulsive. Yeshus is not gaiva. The word yeshus, there is no real English word to translate yeshus. The closest that there is isness.
What?
It's not a word, I know.
Isness?
Isness, as no is, right?
Is, yeah.
So yesh means is. What does yesh mean?
I'm an entity.
How do you translate the word yesh?
I'm an independent entity.
Reuven, how do you translate the word yesh?
Yesh
mayim, what is yesh? Yesh mayim is. Is, right. So yeshus is the state of is, the state of being. So so isness. So yeshus translates, it's not a word. Maybe we have to speak to Mr. Webster and try to get... But yeshus means isness. I am. And chassidus, it's not gaiva that's a problem. It's ising that's a problem. Being is a problem, because when you exist and say I am, instead of recognizing the truth that there is no you, that it's all Eibishter, and you're just part of the Kavana al Yaina, that's all there is.
I am an entity, that's what it means.
Exactly. Gaiva is a midara. Gaiva is a midara. Yeshus is just not allowing the truth of Hashem to shine through you.
Well, how can you say that? If Hashem created a gaiva, there must be a reason why it exists, you know? Like, there must be a certain way that it's useful. Like,
You mean if you created yeshus?
yes, yeah. No, like whatever you say, gaivo, yeshus. So there must be a way. I mean, saying not to down it. Like there must be a purpose for it. Yes.
Right.
Yes.
The simple answer to this
Yeah.
is that it was created, so we should combat it. Because if we didn't have yeshus, the whole purpose of tachtoinim, Hashem created the world because He wants to dir b'tachtoinim. What does it mean tachtim? Yesh. What is a tachtim? What does it mean that we're low? That means that we don't sense the truth and we sense ourselves to be. The more you sense yourself, the bigger the yesh you are. So that's in the simple level, that we were created to combat it and bring Hashem into it. On a deeper level, there is a use for yeshus, but that's not for today. That's for another time. Yeah. On a deeper level, yeshus itself. Yeah. Now open up a Sefer Torah, or a Chumash, or a Gemara, whatever it may be, or a Tanya, and you ask the Sefer Torah, or the Chumash, and the Gemara, what are you? What's it going to answer? I know it can't talk, but let's talk conceptually. What's it going to say? What does it proclaim?
I'm a tool of the Bashefer to explain.
This is Hashem.
I'm a medium to convey to you Hashem's words, Hashem's wisdom, Hashem's will. There is no Hester there. The whole idea of Hester is when something is not true to its reality. Torah has no Hester. There's nothing hiding it. It's exactly, it says what it is. It proclaims what it is. It has no yeshus. Torah has no, it doesn't say, well, I'm Mr. So-and-so, and maybe also I'll serve Hashem. No, its whole identity, its whole existence is conveying the words of Hashem. There is no Hester there. In Torah, there's no Hester panim. When you do a mitzvah, there's no Hester panim. What are you doing right now? This action is what is the ratzon of Hashem. When you're putting on tefillin, when you're putting up a mezuzah, when you're eating kosher, what is that act proclaiming? I'm doing what Hashem wants. There's nothing hiding there. So now we understand that in the entire world, everything is Hester, but there are gradations of light. But everything but Hashem is equally hidden everywhere. As opposed to in Torah mitzvahs, it's the opposite. There is no Hester in Torah mitzvahs, period. You can be a 4-year-old child and you're reading some words of Chumash, there is no Hester there. But there is a difference in terms of the gradation of light also. And here once again, we return to Doimim Tzemeach Chayim Medaber. And Dr. Rebbe says that there can be Torah mitzvahs on 4 levels. You can have Torah mitzvahs on the level of Doimim, or on the level of Tzemeach, or on the level of Chay, or on the level of Medaber. Depending on the level, that's how much light there will be present in it. Again, regardless of the level, whether it's Doimim, Tzemeach, Chay, or Medaber, there's no Hester. When a person learns Torah and does mitzvahs, Hester there isn't. But there is a difference in the amount of light that's present in the Torah and mitzvahs. So when you do a mitzvah, an action mitzvah, without any kavana, that's doimim. That's an act. Just like a stone has no energy, no life force, there's no spirituality evident in it whatsoever. The same thing is also when you do a mitzvah, but without kavana, an action mitzvah, it's like doimim. It's a physical act you don't see any spiritual energy in it. What about if you do a mitzvah which is connected to speech? Let's say you're learning Torah or you're davening, but again without kavana, meaning without any avos Hashem or yiras Hashem. So that's a level higher. That's tzemeach. That's a mitzvah. There's more gilui, there's more revelation in there, more revelation of Hashem in there. But however, it's at the level of tzemeach. If you do a mitzvah with ava v'yira, but ava v'yira tivim, what's called the natural love and fear that we have for Hashem. As we know, this is one of the big things discussed in Tanya, in the earlier prakim and prayer from chapters 18 through 25. Dr. Rebbe establishes this idea that every single yid has within him or herself a natural love for Hashem. By definition, by default, because we're Ben Avraham, Yitzchak, Yaakov, Sarah, Rivka, Rachel, Leah. So therefore, every single one of us has a neshama, and every single one of us is Neir Hashem Nishmas Adam, just like a candle. The fire is always constantly striving and yearning to reach upwards. The same thing as every neshama has this tremendous love for Hashem, and all it wants is to reach upwards towards Hashem. And the Alter Rebbe in chapters 18 through 25, the Alter Rebbe teaches us how to tap into that love, into that natural love. A person whose Torah mitzvah is motivated by the natural love for Hashem is on the level of chai, like an animal. Why? Because just like an animal is instinctive, impulsive, it never escapes its given nature. It doesn't have free choice. So the same thing is, if your mitzvahs are motivated by a love for Hashem, that love for Hashem is impulsive, instinctive, it's natural. So then the level of gilui, the level of revelation that's in that mitzvah is on the level of chai. And if a person serves Hashem, and the kavana, the ava and yira, which is in the mitzvah, is generated, it's called ava v'yira sichlis, was created by the person's own seichel, meaning the person took the time to contemplate the greatness of Hashem, and to thereby arrive at a tremendous ava for Hashem, by, as we know that Chabad, by using your chachma bin adas, by using a person's intellectual faculties, you can develop your own emotions. Then the mitzvah is on the level of medaber, and it has the highest level of revelation possible in a mitzvah.
What about Yehudi?
Sorry?
Isn't it after Medaber Yehudi?
Okay. Alter Rebbe doesn't talk about that. But perhaps the answer will come will come soon. So Alter Rebbe says, he brings down from the Tikkun Zohar, it says that Ava and Yira are like wings. They're the wings to a mitzvah. There's a mitzvah, just like a bird has a body and then it has wings. The mitzvah is the body. But without the kavana, without the Ava and Yira, the mitzvah lacks the wings. And when a person has kavana, so then what you're doing is you're allowing this mitzvah to soar to a higher world, meaning there is more revelation of Hashem in this mitzvah, just like in the higher worlds. There's a higher revelation of Hashem. Again, the light is not as reduced. When a person does a mitzvah, but the person doesn't have any kavana, so the mitzvah then becomes becomes a sterile act. There's very little revelation of Hashem in there. Whatever is revealed, whatever light is there is revealed. Again, there is no hester, but it's a very, very limited level of light that can enter into a act, because the physical act which you do is not a keli for a high spiritual revelation. To use an analogy we've used in the past, it's like a toaster oven. How much electricity can you put into a toaster oven? Even if you were to take it and to plug it into instead of a 110, a 220 would explode. Try plugging it into a chveis, into a nuclear plant or whatever it may be. A physical act is not a receptacle for high levels of revelation. But when you add kavana into a mitzvah, and higher levels of kavana, what you're bringing is, you're elevating it to higher reality, to a higher place, to a higher world. A world of emotions, a world of intellect. And in emotions and intellect, there can be greater revelation. So that's the other side of the coin. Last week we spoke about the maila of mitzvahs, of maisa, of action. This week we're talking about ava v'yira, and it's not a contradiction. The reason why it's not a contradiction is because at the end of the day, to have any revelation of Hashem whatsoever, any connection to Hashem whatsoever, you need to do the action mitzvah. Ava and Yira on their own are nothing. They're wings without a bird, which has zero value. Ava and Yira, their function is to infuse mitzvahs with more light than they would have on their own. But the ground zero Where you always have to start is with the mitzvah. If there's no mitzvah, there's no connection. Hashem gave us 613 mitzvahs. Those are the ways to connect to Hashem. There is no other way to connect to Hashem. And you can't connect to Hashem simply by feeling connected and by feling ava and yira, loving, and I'm a Jew in my heart. The people will say that there's no such thing as being a Jew in the heart. I mean, a Yid is a Yid. Yes. A Yid is a Yid. Whether or not he learns Torah, does mitzvahs, a Yid is a Yid. But the point is, a Jew in the heart, you don't connect to Hashem through your heart. You connect to Hashem through action, through giving a coin to tzedakah, through davening, and saying and actually articulating the words, through putting up a mezuzah, through keeping Shabbos, through making kiddush, through putting on tzitzis. That's how you connect to Hashem. There is no other avenue. And that's the way to bring Hashem's light into this world. However, when you are doing a mitzvah, you can increase the amount of revelation in the mitzvah through your avos Hashem and yiras Hashem. So both are true. On the one hand, ava v'yira is very important. Why? Because without ava v'yira, we're missing the tremendous revelation that's possible. And that revelation is very important. Hashem really wants that not only should there be light in the world, but there should be a tremendous amount of light. On the other hand, what we spoke about last week, which is that everything bottom line boils down to Maisa, is true. It all boils down to the mitzvah. The only thing is that the Kavana takes this mitzvah, which the mitzvah is the main thing, and adds revelation. It's the wings that lifts it up to higher level. So the mitzvah is always the main thing. But Kavana is important because Kavana increases the degree of revelation that there is in a mitzvah. Last week, someone here asked, I think it was Sheldon, but I'm not sure, why Hashem created all the higher worlds. Was that you? And I said, we'll talk about it this week. No, someone asked that question. Why did Hashem create the higher worlds? After all, as we explained last week, the main thing is our world, and the bottom line is Hashem, the tachlis, the kavana, is this world, not the higher worlds. Higher worlds are irrelevant. Hashem, the whole chain of all the spiritual worlds was only created for our world. So why do we need all the worlds? Why can't we just have Elam Haza? Why couldn't Hashem just have created Elam Haza?
God is infinite. You need other worlds to make something to compress.
That's true. But did Hashem?
The was the Olam HaTachton.
I understand. So Hashem couldn't create the world. He couldn't make one big tzimtzum and just come to this world.
He could do anything.
Could have done it, right? So why do you need all the higher worlds? If they're not the kavana, if they're not the kavana, if they're not the objective is dafka here in this world. And why did Hashem have to waste and expend all the energy to create all these worlds? Get straight to the point and create this world. So if he was a human being, you could say that he's limited. You had to. In order to get to this world, you first had to go through that whole process. And since Hashem is recreating the world at every moment, so he continuously has to go through that entire process. But Hashem doesn't need that. He could make one huge contraction, one huge simtsum, boom, Elam Hazah, got me, this world, and we're good to go. Good question, Sasa.
Yeah, what does he need the Malachim for?
Malachim was a different question. Let's leave the Malachim alone for right now.
Next time.
So in Perek Lamed Tes, Dr. Rebbe explains that when you do a mitzvah with kavana, he says there are three different levels of kavana. There's kavana, which we said, ava v'yira tivis, when a person does the kavana and it's motivated by the natural love and fear of Hashem. Then there's a kavana, which is ava v'yira sichlis, which is based on ava v'yira, which was developed by the person, created and developed by the person, him or herself. And Dr. Rebbe says, when a person does a mitzvah on the level of ava v'yira tivis, then the wings that you're providing for that mitzvah elevates it to the world of Yitzirah. If you do a mitzvah with ava v'yira sichlis, you're motivated by love or fear of Hashem, which you mentally worked upon to create that ava, then the wings for that mitzvah lift up the mitzvah to the world of Bria. And then the Alter Rebbe continues, which Mr. Chanowitz might be providing you an answer to your question. The Alter Rebbe says, and then there are the very, very great tzaddikim, who their service of Hashem is even higher than ava v'yira sichlis, and instead they're like a merkava to Hashem. Their avodah is inspired by complete and absolute bittul to Hashem. And then when they do a mitzvah, the wings that they provide to the mitzvah elevates the mitzvah to the world of Atzilus. Atzilus is a world of great light. In Bria, the world, the light is a little more reduced. In Yetzirah, the light is even more reduced. And then we have Asiya, our world, where again the light is greatly reduced, and also there's a complete Hester. Why did Hashem create the worlds of Atzilus, Bria, and Yetzirah? Why didn't He head straight to our world, the world of Asiya? The answer is because when we do it, we need to have when you say a world means a certain level of divine revelation. The purpose of the world of Yetzirah is that level of sensitivity to Hashem, that level of divine revelation, is that when we do a mitzvah with Ava v'Yira Tivim, we bring that level of light into the mitzvah. The purpose of the world of Bria is that when a person does a mitzvah with Ava v'Yira Sichli, with Ava v'Yira which is generated by the mind, so then what we're doing is we're infusing the mitzvah with the level of the world of Bria. Or in different words, we're putting on wings on the mitzvah and letting it fly up to Bria, but since Bria isn't elsewhere, in other words, these are spiritual levels, we're not talking about things that are in certain spaces. So what we're basically saying is that this act that we're doing is infused with the world of Yetzirah. So the answer is that Hashem wants there to be a lot of revelation here in this world. So He created those levels of revelation of Atzilus, Bria, and Yetzirah. Why? So that we should be able to infuse our world with those levels of revelation. The purpose of Bria is not Bria. The purpose of Bria is that we should bring Bria here. The purpose of Yetzirah and Atzilus, the purpose of them all is that when we do mitzvahs properly and with kavanah, we infuse our actions with the level of Bria, with the level of Yetzirah, and with the level of Atzilus. Last week's class and this week's class are very important because they provide a very, very important perspective, which is an overarching perspective in all of Yiddishkeit. On the one hand, we have to know what the most important thing is. The most important thing is mitzvahs. And our connection to Hashem is through a mitzvah. Period. End of sentence. There's nothing more than that. There's no connection to Hashem other than through a mitzvah. And every time we do a mitzvah, we connect to Hashem. You see a Yid, help the Yid do a mitzvah. You're connecting him or her to Hashem. Every mitzvah is a connection to Hashem, which is as Dr. Rabbi says in Tanya in an earlier chapter, is a yichud nitzchi, is an eternal. Every time a person does a mitzvah, you're establishing an eternal connection to Hashem, which is never wiped away. It's the biggest favor to the person, and it's a favor kaviyachol to Hashem. Hashem wants us to do mitzvahs.
This is why it's a mitzvah haba le'adcha al tachmitzena.
There we go. There we go. But at the same time, although Yiddishkeit is a religion of action, and Hamaisa huwa ikar, at the same time, there is also the Ratzon of Hashem that our mitzvahs should be filled with more and more light and more energy. Anytime you do a mitzvah, you're connected to Hashem, but that connection should be revealed. And when you feel it in your heart, when you understand it in your mind, that connection that you're establishing through doing the mitzvah, you experience it in a much more revealed way. And that's also part of the kavanah, that we should experience the revelation of the connection that we have to Hashem, and that revelation is so much greater when there is kavanah in the mitzvah that we are doing. And to conclude today with another idea from the parsha, which is somewhat related to the ideas we're talking about. This week's parsha is a beautiful parsha. Parsha's Balak. Beautiful parsha. The nevuas, the prophecies that we get in this week's parsha are poetic, are beautiful. Where else in the Torah do you find such beautiful, beautiful words about Klal Yisrael, about our relationship with Hashem, Hashem's love for us? And to top it all off, this week's parsha is really the one place in the Torah where, more than any other place, we have a direct reference to Mashiach, a direct nevuah about Mashiach. Bilam, before he leaves, he says, I see something, it's not now, but it's going to come. There will a star will shoot forth from Yaakov, and he says that it'll conquer all the world, conquer Edom. That's what's going to be Ba'achras Hayam. And that's incredible to think about it, is that the nevuah, you have the nevuah about Mashiach. Who says this nevuah? Bilam. Why was Bilam Zoicha? Why was Bilam Zoicha to give over? Why not Moshe Rabbeinu? Or why not? What's up with Bilam? Why do we have to hear the news about Mashiach from Bilam? So there's a beautiful sikha where the Rebbe explains that although Bilam and Balak both hated Klal Yisrael, there was a difference in their hatred. And that Balak's hatred for Klal Yisrael was rational, and Bilam's hatred for Klal Yisrael was irrational. Balak, you could almost say, what could be excused for his hatred of Klal Yisrael and the fact that he decided to hire someone to curse them. Why? Because he felt threatened. The pasuk says, "Vayager Moav." They felt threatened. They didn't know. They thought that maybe the Yidden would conquer them. They didn't know this whole thing that the Yidden weren't allowed to conquer Moav. So Balak was acting in self-defense. But Bilam, first of all, this wasn't his. He didn't even live in Moav. But moreover, Bilam was a Navi. So he knew very well that the Yidden weren't going to be conquering Moav. So when Balak sends in messengers, he could have told him, relax, don't worry, they're not conquering you. Instead, what does Bilam do? He gets onto his donkey, he's coming. Why? Because he hated them. Why did he hate the Yidden? Irrational. It's an irrational hatred. There are different shittas. I know, there are different shittas, but whether Balak knew it, didn't know. But the Rebbe in this sikha takes this mahalach and yasham al ismach. And this also is evident in a Rashi, which we have in this week's parsha, where it says that Vayashkem, Vayakam, I don't remember the exact words of the pasuk. Vayashkem Bilam, that Bilam woke up in the morning. Vayakam, Vayachve Shesasoinei. So Rashi says over there that this is what we see from here, that Hasina Mikalkala Sashura, that because he hated the Yidden so much, that caused him to act in irrational way. Here is Bilam, a respected person, a Navi, a Koisem. He's being summoned, and he has his people, and he himself goes and he saddles his donkey. Why? He was so excited by the opportunity, the possible opportunity to be able to, Rahman al-Islam, cause harm to Klal Yisrael, that he was running off and he was harnessing his donkey. So Bilam had an infinite hate for Klal Yisrael. When I say infinite, what does that mean? When a person's hatred is logical, then how much is their hatred? As much as the reason is, right? It's the hatred is limited by the logic. But when a hatred is illogical, then it's endless. It's boundless. It doesn't have a beginning. It doesn't have an end. Why are we told this whole story of Bilam and Balak? So as the pasuk says later on in Chumash Devarim, that Hashem Bilam, that Hashem did not want to listen to Bilam. So what did Hashem do instead? Vayafech Hashem Elikecha lecha es haklala lebracha. Next words. Ki ahevcha Hashem Elikecha. So because Hashem loves us, what did He do? He transformed the klala into bracha. Hashem didn't just say, no, your klalas are nothing. The Hashem went and He transformed. Vayafech, the pasuk says. He transformed the klalas into brachas. If Hashem is going to transform the klalos into brachas, then He wanted to make sure that the klala is the worst klala possible. Because then when you transform it into its polar opposite, it becomes the best bracha. What happens when you transform this tremendous sinah, this irrational, you might want to say this sinas chinam, this irrational hatred that Bilam had to Klal Yisrael? What happens when you transform that sinah into a bracha? What do you get? The opposite of irrational sinah. What is the opposite of irrational sinah? Irrational love. And what is irrational love? Is Mashiach. Because when Mashiach comes, that's when we're going to be the beneficiary of Hashem's infinite love to us, which is well above and beyond logic or rational. And that's why Bilam is the one who gives us the bracha about Mashiach. Yeah, because Bilam with his sinas chinam, when that sinah, that mikalkela sashura, that tremendous sinah, when that is transformed to ava mikalkela sashura, the result of that is Mashiach. Where do we get that from? How do we get this tremendous reward from Hashem? So the answer is in the same Rashi that we said earlier. What does Rashi say? It says over there that when Bilam went and he saddled his donkey, so Hashem tells him, Rasha, kvar kadam cha'acher. You think you're special? There's someone else who came before you. And who was that? Avraham Avinu. Avraham Avinu, Hashem commanded him. Hashem commanded him to go shech the son. So we understand that Avraham Avinu had no choice but to do the mitzvah. Hashem told him to shech the son. He had to do it. He didn't have a choice. As painful as it is, and it was painful for Avraham Avinu. Farish was painful.
Was his free will?
Sorry?
Couldn't he run away? I mean, doesn't he still have free?
If Hashem comes and tells you to do it, you're not left with much choice.
A direct command.
Yeah.
He heard it with his. So now.
If someone comes to you with a gun and says your money and your life, you pull out your wallet, you give it to them. Is that free choice? When Hashem tells you to do something, and there's no free choice there. He had to do it. And it was very painful to do it. If it wasn't painful to do it, it wouldn't have been an assignment. Think about that for a second.
But he could have questioned that.
Leave that alone for a second. That's a different question on the side. So Avraham has to do it. The greatness, the Alter Rebbe says later on in the Ger Sakedah, the greatness of that Akedah is not that Avraham Avinu went and he shechted and was willing to shech his son. The greatness of that Akedah was that Avraham had such a tremendous ava for Hashem that he vayaskim Avraham b'boker. He wakes up early in the morning. He's excited to do this mitzvah, this most painful mitzvah. Vayachvish is chamori, as the Rambam points out. Avraham Avinu had 318 servants. He could have asked any one of them to saddle his donkey for him. He's so excited about this mitzvah that he got from Hashem, he's saddling his donkey. That's ava mikalkela sashura. That's a love for Hashem, which is an infinite love, which makes no sense. We can know this, what it means to experience a love which is so deep and so strong that it's irrational. It doesn't make any sense. And the love hurts, and it causes dysfunction perhaps in your life and in your schedule. And you think about it, why do I love it? But sometimes there's something which you love so deeply that mikalkelas is ashura. None of the cheshbainis make matter. None of these things make a difference. There's the shura, there's the straight line which you want to follow, but the ava is making you go like that. That's the ava that Avraham Avinu had for Hashem. And it is the koyach of the ava that Avraham Avinu had for Hashem which transformed the klala of Bilam, which came from Sina Mekalkela Sashura, into the blessing of Mashiach. So this obviously relates to what we're talking about over here today. The idea of Avas Hashem and Yiras Hashem, and the importance of Kavanah and a mitzvah. But yeah, we could do a mitzvah. Avraham Avinu also could have done the mitzvah. He could have done it, done the Akedah that has gone off. But the incredible element that was added to the mitzvah when he had Avas Hashem, when he had that Kavanah, and the impact that it had generations later on the story of Bilam. And the same things we have to know that when we do a mitzvah connects us to Hashem. But the incredible element that's added when we have Ava, and especially if we can arrive at that level of Ava because we're children of Avram, so we inherit what he has. So therefore, that's That's why he's called our father. Father means we inherit. So we inherit that mikalkela sashura, that ability to have this ava for Hashem in a way, the mikalkela sashura, that we do things that are illogical even, and when we do that, we're ready for the ultimate bracha, which comes from that, which is the darach kechav miyakeh, which is Mashiach. Shabbos, everyone, and this is a special Shabbos. Just a moment to talk about the Shabbos. The Shabbos is Shiva Asher B'Tammuz. But we don't fast. It's nidcha. So it's a special Shabbos. Because the truth is that every fast day, it says when Mashiach comes, the fast days are all going to be Yom Tov. Why are they all going to be Yom Tov? Because when Mashiach comes, we're going to realize what kind of chesed that all these days are. That really the whole Galus and the whole Churban Beis HaMikdash, everything was only to bring us to the place of the Gilui of Mashiach and the Geula. Right now, these days are sad days, because right now the day conceals the truth of it. The truth of it is that it's good, but it's concealed, so they're sad days, they're fast days. When Mashiach comes, they'll be happy days. We know that every Shabbos is a me'ein of Mashiach. Shabbos is me'ein elam haba. On Shabbos we say Mizmer Shirli Yom HaShabbos L'Yom Shekulei Shabbos U'Menucha L'Chayei Elamim. And therefore on Shabbos we experience a taste of Mashiach. So that's why when a fast day comes on Shabbos, we don't fast. Why? Because on Shabbos we experience, not only that we don't have the negative of the fast day, we actually get to experience the Eis Ratzoin, the beauty behind it, and we have to be besimcha, extra simcha the Shabbos, and break through the walls of Galus and Taka, that we shouldn't have to fast on Sunday, and we should instead dance together with Mashiach, Yerushalayim Be'er Kodesh. Shabbos, everyone.